What's up, everyone? My name is Emorja, and we are back for one more episode of Black at ND. And today is a special. I have a special guest because she is breaking barriers and breaking those traditional curses that we have as Black people. But we're owning things, and she is helping us to do that. But I won't get too much into that. I'll let her describe who she is. But Ashley, thank you so much for being my guest on today's show. How are you doing?
I'm well. Thank you so much for having me, Emoji.
Yes, yes, certainly. So we want to just sort of just go straight for it. Like, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Philadelphia, West Philadelphia, born and raised with a playground that I still know.
Okay. Yeah.
Uh, my family, they're all from Overbrook, same place
Okay.
Will Smith grew up at. I grew up
That's
in West
crazy.
Philadelphia. And I went to the Philadelphia High School for Girls,
Okay.
and I graduated from Bennett College for Women, which is a historically Black
Yeah.
college for women
Yeah.
in Greensboro, North Carolina. That is
Okay.
very well known for its civil rights movement, its history with
Yeah.
supporting the civil rights movement. So yeah, that's who I am and where I'm from.
That's what's up. I love it. And so, how was the neighborhood that you grew up in?
I grew up solid middle class. So like my neighborhood, I was fortunate enough to have people who were entrepreneurs in my neighborhood. Even my grandfather was a carpenter. My father was a manager of Pizza Hut and a district manager later on in life.
Yeah.
My mother was a police officer. So I
Okay.
grew up in Philadelphia at a time, particularly in the 90s, where it was really cool to grow up and hang out until the street lights came on.
Yeah.
So I'm an 80s baby. So I had a really good lifestyle. I can't complain.
Okay. Okay. That's awesome. That's awesome. And so you went to Benedict. So when did you go to Benedict, or how
No,
did you
not
get there? I'll say that.
Benedict, Bennett.
Oh, Bennett.
B
Oh, okay. Okay. Here we go. See, Zoom gonna mess me up. All right, bet. So you went to Bennett College. So how did you end up going there? Was that like a family school or just somewhere you just sort of chose?
No, I went to an all girls high school and I was a leader and I had such a great experience that when I went to visit Bennett College, I was like, this feels like home. This feels like a place
Yeah.
where I can continue the experiences of leadership, where I could continue my spiritual journey because I've been a believer since I was 12 and I was very active in like my gospel choir at Girls High and the
Oh, so you
Bible
sang
club.
too? Okay.
I sing a little bit.
Okay. Oh, I'm
and
gonna get you before the
so
show's over.
Bennett just like felt like it was for me.
Okay.
It was the sense that this is my place. And I had a really amazing experience there.
That's what's up. That's awesome. And so, what did you study when you were there?
I studied psychology. My master plan was to get my degree in psychology, go on and get a PhD in industrial organizational psychology because I had a
Mm,
very I had a strong interest in businesses and how businesses, and it develop leaders and
yeah.
information around how we think and how we take those thoughts and apply them to business and how we think as consumers. So I was just interested in all of those things and like how we make decisions as groups and
Yeah.
teamwork so that
Exactly.
we can launch products and how we create successful pathways for opportunities for
Yeah.
particularly African Americans. So I've
Yeah.
always had a very strong interest in just how, um, you know, organizational structures can create better lifestyles.
That is, yeah, that's exactly right. 'Cause, I mean, not a lot of people grew up having those opportunities. A lot, like for example, going back to the song with "Good Time," some people really are scratching and surviving just to have a good time.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
Gosh, yeah. And now, how did you get into real estate?
Yeah. So I always wanted to be into real estate, right?
Okay.
I used to watch HGTV all the time.
HGTV.
I'm like,
Wow.
oh,
Listen.
I can do this, like I can
Yeah.
flip a house, I can renovate. I'm just like, I could do this, right? And
Yeah.
so
Exactly.
I was completely enthralled with this idea of taking old properties and making them new again and creating homes for people. And for me, I grew up in, Philadelphia, where there were a lot of like abandoned buildings and, dilapidated neighborhoods, where I always had in the back of my mind, like, we can fix this, we can make this better, we can create a community that's, thriving, where people have a strong sense of well-beingness. And so I got into real estate as a realtor because I didn't have no money to be able to invest.
I get it.
And flip. I was like, geez. And I had bad credit too. I had bad credit. I didn't have any money. I was struggling because I graduated in 2008 at the height of the recession, where there weren't any good jobs. And so I was doing door-to-door sales when I graduated from Bennett College, and I grew this kind of tough skin that created this idea that no matter what, if there's a will, there's a way. There's always somebody who's going to say yes, even when I get 100 no's. So even though I didn't have my credit and I didn't have my money right, I was like, there's going to be a way for me, right? And so I found out that you could become a realtor for like $500. And I was like, well, that I can do.
Let me get my license tomorrow then. So it's okay.
Right? I was like, wait a minute. The cost to become an agent is much easier. Like the barrier to entry for this career is much lower than trying to get into real estate investing, right? And so I was like pregnant with my son, and I was like, I had been doing marketing for like 10 years. I own my own company called the Mobile Mavens, which is a 360-degree marketing agency. And when I got pregnant with my son, I said, I'm tired of working for other people, because even though I work for myself, you still work for other people.
That is
as an independent contractor. You have to work with your vendor. If you're a subcontractor like me, where you're working with other projects, the main contractor on the project is your boss. Even when you are an independent consultant or an entrepreneur, you still have people to report to, even if it's just your customer. You're right. So I was like, okay. I really, even though I am an entrepreneur and independent contractor, I didn't feel like I was making the amount of money that I was worth in my position as a marketing person. And so I said, I want to have unlimited potential. And when we think about careers, real estate is an opportunity to make unlimited potential.
Also, is all this in Atlanta? Like, that's where everything started for you?
Well, all of this started in Atlanta. When I graduated from college in 2008, I went to Atlanta. I decided to go to Atlanta versus going back home to Philadelphia, because I love the Black businesses, the Black excellence, the Black culture that was thriving in Atlanta at the time. It was like no other place that I wanted to be, right? And so all of this was happening. I was having all of these thoughts while I was living in Atlanta. And I just had my son like 2 years ago. My son's 2 years old. And that's the moment, when I was like, that was the moment for me. It was like, okay, I need to create a career, something for myself where there was no limits. And for me, I knew that if I could bring in those real estate checks, not only would I be able to have a nice income, but then I could be an investor. Then I would be able to take that excess money from creating this additional stream of income by starting this new career. Those first couple of checks allowed me to save up some money so that I could eventually become the investor I wanted to be.
You got me thinking. You really got me thinking. Okay, we're going to talk. And so because of COVID, how has that impacted, or, I don't know, how has that been for your company?
Well, I think anybody who reads self-help, I don't even want to call them self-help books, but if you've read Think and Grow Rich, if you've read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, if you read any Tony Robbins book or Damon John's The Power of Broke. When these types of pandemics and, downturns, these challenges show up in our world and in this economy, that's a chance for a wealth shift. And when you are mentally prepared for it, instead of being like, oh, the sky is falling, you actually make a lot of money, because now you begin to be wise and a visionary that can see how this pandemic can impact and disrupt business for the future. And so my business has been booming in the midst of this pandemic. Because
that's crazy.
One, people's minds are like, I want to leave the city and move into, a rural area, because a pandemic in the midst of an urban setting means that that contagion spreads faster. And so people are looking at, how do I protect my family? Well, let me move out of the city to rural areas. The second thing and the second thing that's impacted my career during the pandemic is the fact that there's a shortage of inventory, that people don't want to move because they're like, hey, I don't know what's going on in the pandemic, so that means I'm going to stay in my house. Well, if people are staying in their house, that means that all the people who want to take advantage of these low interest rates that also are as low as they've ever been because of the pandemic, people who want to take advantage of those low interest rates are now looking to buy a home. So our inventory is low, which means our home values are skyrocketing, and the demand for homes is skyrocketing because the interest rate is so low. And now that means our new construction industry is going to be booming. So when you look at a pandemic, you have to see the trends and you say, how can I fit in with the trend and be, as an entrepreneur, the solution to the problem? And so that's what I've done in this pandemic. I've looked at from an entrepreneurial lens on how can I be a solution to the problem of a housing crisis that disproportionately is affecting Black Americans, Black veterans, and on top of all of that, we have a social justice issue that's on everybody's mind. So you look at, how can I really make a difference and be the answer to the problems that are affecting my community and that I'm passionate about. And so that's how all of this gets started.
I mean, and you're doing this. We can look at the 19 families, and the 96 acres of land that you all have, purchased. It's not 40 acres and a mule at this point. Can you, for those who don't know, can you give us, and I know you said this 1,000 times, can you tell us your story about how you got there and how did all this come to fruition?
Absolutely. So again, we have been in the midst of a pandemic and a bunch of protests. And it was taking its toll on myself and my friends and my family and the people that we care about to witness, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and then the George Floyd incident, followed by Rayshard Brooks here in Atlanta. So when you have the back-to-back incidences of racial trauma, trauma that is specifically happening to Black bodies, this trauma really made me reflect on, how do we change it, particularly in a place where systemic racism, systemic oppression is so prevalent, because the very foundation and basis of our country is harsh. It's a reality that we built a country where an entire group of Black citizens were considered 3/5 of a human being. We built a whole country around that.
Yep.
So when you build an entire country around the idea that a group of people are subhumans, and then we take a whole lot of conditioning to continue to try to perpetuate those ideas. And then just 100 years later, for us anyway, say, okay, you're free, you're good to go. we have to go back and look at the systems and the foundations. And so we, as moms and as wives, myself and my good friend Renee Walters, she sent me a message one morning and she said, we do morning accountability calls. And she asked if I had seen email that she had forwarded about a Black town for sale. And I was like, nope, I didn't see it. But if they got a whole town for sale for $1.7 million, let's run it. Because in my eyes, it was like a eureka moment. When she said that as a real estate agent, I was like, okay, if we are dealing with economic disparities that are disproportionately affecting Black Americans to the point that we're ending up in caskets way more because of this pandemic. We're ending up in jails way more because of Jim Crow and the prison industrial system. We're ending up in a place where we might eventually, as a people, be making less than $0 as far as our net worth, because that's the trends. The trends are all saying that Black folks are going, not only are we at the bottom of the totem pole, but we're getting to a place where we're in the negative of net worth. Yeah. And these are facts. I'm not making this up. Yeah. This is
I believe
stuff you can find. So if that's the case, how do we become solution oriented to fix this, to shift this? And so when she said there's a city for sale for $1.7 million, I said, that might be a way for us to start making some change when it comes to how our government interacts with Black citizens. Because at the end of the day, what's going to have to happen is our government has to make a change.
Exactly.
And so when she said a city was for sale, I'm like, let's buy the city. Let's see how we can make this work. And so we went to an open house, and we found out because there's a period of time that you call it you doing your due diligence. And as we were doing our due diligence, we found out that the whole city wasn't for sale. There were commercial properties and some residences that were for sale, but there was already, a Black Mayor Joyce Denson, who's a sweetheart. We love her. She's so amazing, inspirational leader. There was a Black chief of police there already. So we were like, okay, as we did our due diligence, we were like, there were, 3 Black commissioners, the county manager is Black, the superintendent of the schools is Black. And, all of the, good white folks that were still there were very friendly, and people were neighborly and unified. And it was the kind of small place where it's so small that everybody knows each other. And they all went to the same middle school and the same high school and the same primary school. So people don't necessarily see color. They see a person that they grew up with their entire life. And they were very welcoming to us, especially when we started talking about how can we help, add value to your community versus being, I'm just coming, I want to build my stuff and we'll forget about y'all, but rather we want to come and add value. And so what happened for us was we realized quickly that the $1.7 million would not be enough, because you were still gonna have to put more money into fixing up the buildings. You still had to get entrenched with the politics of the community as far as, the mayors, the council people, because they had a structure already in place. And so during that due diligence period, again, I had that eureka moment where it was like, wait, we were looking at other places nearby, and we found the 96 acres about 8 minutes away from Toomsboro. And so there was a lot of word on the street that somebody else had boarded another young Black woman from Philadelphia. Shout out to Philly again. And we had a bunch of investors who were there. And so there were signs and keys that happened during that open house that let us see that there was opportunity here. And, sometimes you will see things, and a lot of people went to Toomsboro and left and didn't come back. But we went to Toomsboro and we saw an opportunity in versus taking that opportunity and just saying like, oh, good idea, but it seems like it's going to be too much work. We saw the opportunity and said, let's get to work. And so we purchased the 96 acres right next to the city of Toomsboro and found out that it was not in the city of Toomsboro when we bought it. And so once we found out that it wasn't actually in the city limits, but rather it was in unincorporated Wilkinson County and it was near a river and a national state park, it just made sense then to me to say, hey, let's build our own city. Like, forget buying Toomsboro and trying to rename the town and trying to work the politics to make things fit. Let's just build it from scratch, and let's build it according to our values, our principles, things that we know we would like to see if we were in charge. Because guess what? We can be in charge. There's no rules that say that you can't be in charge. Like, there's just not any.
Exactly.
You can buy land and you can, within the law, within the rule of law, start making changes, make amendments, start really understanding how the civil politics really take shape in our lives, because we're not civically engaged typically. We're used to just inheriting what is available, right? Particularly around our housing. When it comes to housing, it's like, what's on the market? Is this home for sale? Is this lot for sale? If it's not in my price range, I can't live there. If it is in my price range, this is where I have to go. So when you look at a market that will dictate where you live and how you live by the income you make, because that's the bottom line, you have very limited choices. Or you can build it for yourself. And guess what? Land ain't quite as expensive.
Exactly. I was
as people think.
Stays in Georgia. I was like, I really want to get me like some land so I can, build a house. But shoot, you got a whole town. But the thing is,
having a whole town sounds great, but it's a lot of work. We're working through dynamics. We're working through how do we finance this beyond just the land we purchased in our homes, but the infrastructure that we'd like to build when it comes to commercial projects that we'd like to be able to implement. So you got to think through all of those things. We didn't think through all of those things. I don't want to make it seem like we had our big plan in place when we bought the land, because I will say this: if anybody takes any nugget from this, land by itself is an asset. If you don't do anything with it, just like a good piece of art, just like a good piece of gold jewelry, or just like, that heirloom diamond ring, when you hold on, it appreciates in time because they're not making no more of it. And so if you can't build on it, if you aren't able to farm it or whatever the case may be, you can make money off of just owning land. And there's lots of strategies around that people don't understand because we have not been taught these strategies.
Exactly. And you are so right on that, Ashley. And so, of course, of course, you already know about Wall Street, Black Wall Street, and what happened in 1921 in Tulsa. And because you have the same idea that they had, but of course theirs burnt down, that's not going to happen with freedom. But what are some things that you've learned from that, or how can, if possible, ways to prevent that happening? Because of course, with Black people being intelligent, there's always going to be another side where it's like they don't need that, they don't need to have that. And then even to tack onto that is like support. I was watching something with Oprah not long ago, and she did this episode in 1987, and she was in Forsyth County, Georgia. At that time, they had never had Black people live in this city for 75 years. And so when she went there and did the interview, people were saying, keep the niggers out. Like, they don't need to be here. And there was somebody who was in the audience who really supported that. He was like, we have kept this place free from Blacks and homosexuals for, X amount of years. And with freedom being this epitome of what it's like to see the worth of the Black dollar and to see, Black enterprise, what can we expect there? Like, what are some things that we can look for in freedom?
Well, we want to create a hyper local economy that's based around the ideas of creating a Black community that
Yeah.
will protect, create peace, and prosperity for its citizens, for its residents.
Ooh,
It's simple. People don't want a lot in life: peace, protection, and prosperity. That's
yes.
it.
Yes.
I don't want nobody running up on me. I don't want nobody fooling with my peace, and don't be fooling with my money, right?
Oh, that's it. And don't mess with our food either. That's the other thing too. So.
And don't mess with my food, which is one of the major, and which is why our goal is to center everything around food sovereignty and agri-tourism, and creating a community that is conscious of addressing issues like climate change, and a conscious community that's interested in creating a welcoming atmosphere for all people, whether they are, LGBTQIA or not. We want a community, no matter whether you're Muslim, you're Jewish, you're, or I guess they could say Israeli in our community, whether you're Black, Israeli, or whether you right, yeah, like it's for. I mean, we all Black, but whether I'm trying to say whether you're Christian, Muslim, whatever you identify with, we are diverse people. We don't exist in a monolith. We deserve to have a community where we all feel authentic, safe, and loved, and can thrive, because that's what we haven't had, is an experience where we had a Black community thriving since 1960s. Because I hate to say it, but since integration, our communities have been systemically disinvested in. We left our communities chasing after, the American dream. And that means our communities have suffered greatly, because we take our top talent and they're at Fortune 500 companies. They leave their communities, their neighborhoods, for more affluent neighborhoods. And that leaves us at a disadvantage where we're lacking talent, and we're lacking opportunities, and we're lacking the money that's necessary from that tax base to be able to have good schools, and to have good jobs, and to have entrepreneurs who are looking out for the citizens. And so that's our goal, is to create a community that's based on a hyper-local economy that is food sovereign, that's self-determining, self-sufficient in as many ways as we can possibly be.
I love that. And so you've really spoken to me, because one of the dreams that I've had once I graduate with my doctorate degree here from Notre Dame, long-term, is to open a school for the performing arts for African-American children, period. And we'll focus on all the music that has been created by Blacks, which of course that makes up 90% of the music that we hear in the U.S.
Yes.
And across you have to. And so my story is, I'm the first African American to graduate with a master's, and the first to pursue a doctorate here at Notre Dame in music. And so there is no way that I can't continue, showing people what you can do. It's not always easy. Of course, there's always the work behind the scene that people don't always catch. They only see what happens once it's time to present. And just hearing your story really gives me the motivation I need. So thank you so much. And there's also like this rumor going on. I don't know if it's true or not. Y'all got a TV show coming out?
We do have something in the works. It's not a TV show. It'll be a docu-series. So, because we're doing something very historic, and we want to be able to document it. We want to be able to inspire other, little Black girls, little Black boys, people of all colors, that if there's something that they put their mind to, that they can accomplish it. And what better way to change the perspective of Americans than being on TV, showing up every day in your authentic Black excellence and all of your melanated glory, So our goal is to show up, show out with all of our swag sauce, and let them see what we can create when we have no limit. And that's our goal, is to go build an amazing community that is built on our wildest dreams, our ancestors' wildest dreams, in a world where we have technology, innovation.
I know, right?
What? So we're about to go do that. We're going to go build something with the intention of making our ancestors proud and making
Yes.
future generations have something that they got to say, oh, I got to show up. I got to do better.
Exactly. 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 It raises the bar. And you know what?
Yeah.
With all that you're doing, how do you? I have just a couple more questions. I'm gonna let you go and I'm out of here. A couple more questions. How do you maintain balance in your life from your personal life to something this big that can easily pour into your personal life? How do you find balance as a Black woman doing something like this?
There's no balance. And I'll say that in honesty because I'm doing something I love. I eat, sleep,
Okay.
dream this all day in living color. And
Okay.
so the lines are blurred. My kids are on the land. My kids are at the Black Achievement Fund headquarters with me. My kids are wherever I'm at. My husband's there. I work until 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night, and they right there with me, cheering me on because what we're doing is the kind of thing you do with no sleep. Sleep is for suckers when you're talking about building something. And the
Something like
reality
this.
is
Yeah.
there's momentum. This is only for a season. This won't be for forever. So when
Yeah.
you have that moment, that magical
Yes.
moment where things are aligning for you, where resources are adding up, where every moment things are leading you closer and closer to your goal, you don't have
Yeah.
time to sleep. You give every ounce of energy and time that you have to make sure that you don't miss the moment, you don't miss the opportunities. And so there is no balance in this season. Now, will I be like this forever? I'm not going to be running on 150
Right.
for
Nah.
the next 10 years. Well, for these few weeks,
Yes.
for
Yes.
these next couple
For
of
such a
months,
time as
I'm going to
this.
do what I have to do so that we can succeed and do it at an exponential speed. Because
Yeah.
once you gain momentum,
Hmm.
eventually I won't have to work this hard because I'll have
Yeah.
systems in
You have a
place.
team.
I'll have a team in place. Right.
Yep.
And so you do what you got to do in the season, and you have to be able to recognize the seasons. And so I
Mm.
still make time. I go to the spa, and when my
Okay.
husband say, "Hey, it's time to chill," I chill. When my baby says, "Hey, come play with me," I play with her, and I just make it my business to be present in the moment. And so if the moment
Okay.
is a time for my family, I have that time with my family. If the moment is the time to have a conversation with the only Black woman in America who can write loans and for Fannie
Yeah.
Mae and Jenny Mac, you have that
Yeah.
call with that Black lady who
Yeah.
can do
Yeah.
that work. And
Yeah.
you have a good friend who's in need that needs somebody to talk to. You stop and you take that moment and you talk to them, and you be constantly present in the moment because it's our life and it
Yes.
intertwines, and you just have grace and
Yes.
compassion and gratitude and just all the things that allow you to make it through the day with joy because you're doing what you love to do.
That's exactly right. Oh, Ashley, thank you so much. And last question, I'm gonna let you go. Where and when did you pledge?
I pledged at Bennett College for Women, Zeta Xi chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, spring
Bet.
of 2007.
Okay. Okay. All right, bet. Well, I'm fall 10, Sigma
All
Upsilon.
right.
All right, University of North Florida. So I bet that's awesome. Listen, everybody, please go follow this story. Ashley has some amazing things, her and the team. So you can always check us out for Black and Indie for some more episodes coming up next Thursday. We'll see you soon. Ashley, thank you so much.
Yeah, don't forget, tell these folks to go visit my website too at
Oh yeah. Oh,
www.
listen, I'm gonna make sure to include all the details in there, but make sure you all go check out her website. Ashley, can you tell us what that website is real quick?
Yes, it's www.freedomgeorgia.com. And I never end an interview without sharing my passion and our strategic
That's right.
partners, the Black Achievement Fund. The Black
That's right.
Achievement Fund is an organization, a national nonprofit that has one goal, which is the economic independence of Black Americans. And we can do this by creating a sustainable income when we work collectively. $9 a month is what we're asking. Our goal is to get 10 million Black Americans giving $9 a month. That would generate $90 million a month in revenue that we can then utilize to build towns, to build businesses, to create affordable housing, healthcare, and literally address every disparity, every need that we have in our community for ourselves. So please, please, please take a moment to visit www.baf.solutions, not .com, not .org, but .solutions, because this is the solution to Black economic independence.
And let the church say amen. That's what I'm talking about. I love it. Bet. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, no, definitely.